of migrants kidnapped by the United States through the plan for their return to their homeland. Let's see data about the development of the Back to the Homeland plan.
The first two flights from the United States arrived in Venezuela as part of the Return to the Homeland plan, returning 190 nationals to the country. Then, from Mexico, a plane arrived to Venezuelan soil on February 24th with 242 migrants on board. A second flight from Mexico arrived in Venezuela on March 20, with 311 Venezuelan migrants who returned to the country. Likewise, the Plan Vuelta a la Patria repatriated another 311 Venezuelan migrants from Honduras on March 23rd, and a second aircraft from Honduras arrived to Venezuelan territory one day later on March 24th, 2025, with 199 Venezuelan migrants on board. In turn, Venezuela received another 175 Venezuelan nationals from the United States in a plane that landed on March 30th. All the flights that have arrived in the country so far total more than 1,400 Venezuelan nationals repatriated as part of the government plan Vuelta a la Patria, promoted by President Nicolás Maduro to guarantee dignified return of all Venezuelan migrants to their country.
And Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro reiterated his condemnation of the human rights violations against Venezuelan migrants promoted by the far right and the governments of the United States and El Salvador. The Venezuelan president asserted that the far right is responsible for the wave of migration experienced by the country as a result of the economic sanctions requested by Maria Corina Machado and Juan Guaidó in an attempt to destabilize the Venezuelan government. In this sense, he detailed that all the coercive measures implemented by the U.S. government against the nation only seek to undermine sovereignty and peace. He also highlighted that the transfer of migrants to El Salvador represents a serious violation of international laws. Moreover, the president applauded the federal decision blocking Trump's law to revoke more than 170,000 temporary protected status to nationals residing in the U.S.
Get out of the way, traitors to the homeland, those who have come out to support the violation of the human rights of the Venezuelan migrants, the kidnapping, the forced disappearance. Get out of the way, Sayona, Maria Machado. She is the one who planned all this. She came up with this to humiliate the people of Venezuela, as revenge, because she could not and will not be able to win. The relatives know it and all the migrants should know it. All this was proposed by Maria Machado to her godfather, Marco Rubio, the godfather of Maria Machado. All this was proposed and coordinated with the administration of the United States for aggression.
Brazil approved a new strategy to counter United States tariff threats. In the face of the tariff threat from the United States, the Economic Affairs Committee of the Brazilian Senate gave the go-ahead to a strategy that makes it possible to take measures against those countries that try to impose trade walls. According to teleSUR's Brazilian reporter Ignacio Lemus, this proposal also allows the South American giant to react to unilateral foreign decisions as violation and damage of trade agreements. The measure to impose tariffs will take effect as of April 2nd, so the Brazilian Commission approved the project on a preventive basis. Also in Brazil, activists rallied in Rio de Janeiro to remember the victims of the civil military dictatorship in commemoration of the anniversary of the coup of '64. The demonstration took place in front of a former building of the defunct Department of Political and Social Order used for illegal imprisonment and torture by the civil military dictatorship. Demonstrators carried photographs of the victims as well as banners and posters recalling the actions of January 8, 2022, when supporters of Jair Bolsonaro invaded the Capitol building. The coup d'etat perpetrated by members of the armed forces in 1964 overthrew then-President João Goulart and ushered in a 21-year dictatorship that tortured and murdered thousands of people. And in Argentina, experts confirmed that no traces of alcohol or drugs were found in Diego Armando Maradona's body. Likewise, the scientific police expert Ezequiel Bentosi declared that no substances such as alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, ecstasies, or any other drug were found in Maradona's body except for the medicines prescribed by the psychiatrist Agustina Kosachov. Dr. Alejandro Vega said that Maradona was oversized and had a long-standing ischemia due to the absence of irrigation and oxygen. Prosecutors Patricio Ferrari and Cosme Iribarren charged neurosurgeon Leopoldo Luque, psychiatrist Agustina Kosachov, psychologist Carlos Diaz with the crime of simple homicide with intentional infliction. In other news, the White House confirmed the immediate imposition of unilateral tariffs, a protectionist measure that will affect prices for the U.S. working class. U.S. President Donald Trump justifies this policy with a nationalist discourse while ignoring the global consequences of his trade war. Under the euphemism of Liberation Day, the United States government imposes reciprocal tariffs without considering their effect on dependent economies. This policy reflects Washington's hegemonic approach, which prioritizes coercion over multilateral dialogue. This unilateral measure, which will drive up prices, was defended by presidential spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt with a "it will work." On Wednesday, Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM David Commission addressed during an interview the recent visit of U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio to the Caribbean, highlighting the bloc's strong response to Washington's policies targeting the Cuban medical missions.
We stood unified. We had one position. We articulated that position, and we explained our reality. Look, this is our truth. This is our reality. This is what the interests of our people demands. And this is where we stand. And, you know, if you proceed the way you said you're going to proceed, well, you know, we don't, but this is where we stand. And that has obviously had an impression. And so I think that is a great takeaway for me. And I think an important part of it, Pearson, is that the Caribbean people were obviously behind the positions that our leaders took.
Yes.
Because the Caribbean people know the Cuban Medical Corporation, and they know what benefit it has brought to us.
And in this context, Ambassador Commission touched on the current U.S. foreign policy, which he stated evidences a return to the Monroe Doctrine approach of the 19th century.
We are going to face some challenges with the foreign policy of the Trump administration. We can perhaps discuss that because I think the policy that they're pursuing is it's a hark back to American foreign policy of the 19th century.
Indeed.
You know, where, the Monroe Doctrine, the system of the American system of political economy. We could discuss that, and that is going to produce some challenges for us.
Welcome back. Amid a corruption scandal involving Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and close collaborators, Israel's genocidal troops threatened to expand the offensive in Gaza. The announcement was made by Zionist Minister Israel Katz on Wednesday after criminal troops under his command killed 17 Palestinians in different parts of the enclave earlier in the day. The massive eviction order does not detail any specific area. He has limited himself to say that security areas will be taken and annexed in case it is an ongoing operation and not a way to distract attention from the serious corruption scandal of Zionism. It will imply a new massive evacuation of the population. And in Palestine as well, more journalists and media workers have been killed in the besieged Gaza Strip than in the two world wars combined. The killing of another Palestinian journalist in an Israeli bombing in the southern Gaza Strip brought to 232 the number of press professionals killed since October 7, 2023. Gaza journalists bear the brunt of these dangers, as the decline of Western foreign correspondents has led the global media to rely increasingly on local reporters. The Israeli regime's ban on foreign reporters, coupled with the killings of Palestinian reporters, shows that there are far fewer and fewer journalists trained to translate news from the devastated territory. And the Palestinian government rejects the visit of Israeli ministers to the occupied West Bank. Palestinian authorities condemn the tour of Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich and Defense Minister Israel Katz, who advocate the deepening protection and promotion of Jewish settlements in Palestinian lands. In turn, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz warned that they will not allow the Palestinian national authorities, recognized by the international community, to expand the urban areas in strategic areas of the West Bank. The Israeli non-governmental organization for peace denounced that Israel's policy of wanting to intensify its attacks with expansionist plans undermines any possibility of reaching a peaceful solution to the conflict. And the brutal U.S. bombardments against the Yemeni civilian population with the support of the United Kingdom have not set back the operation of solidarity with Palestine. 3 attacks were reported by the Yemeni army against the aircraft carrier Truman, with cruise missiles, as confirmed by the spokesman of the Yemeni Armed Forces, Brigadier General Yahya Sadi. The operations against the nuclear aircraft were carried out. Hours earlier, Washington's forces, backed by the United Kingdom, attacked civilian areas in Hajjah, Hodeidah, and Sada, leaving several dead and wounded. The Pentagon troops besieged by the Houthi forces were forced to deploy a second aircraft carrier from the Asia-Pacific region. And Iran rejects U.S. threats and reaffirms that there are neither military options nor military solutions to the nuclear issue, and for the moment they are sticking to the path of diplomacy. The statement is made by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi about the intimidating language of President Donald Trump and his diplomats. The Persian foreign policy chief reiterated that diplomatic channels have worked for his country in the past and reiterated that they can still work. The reply to the letter sent by the White House was sent back to Tehran in intimidating terms that Israel has rejected, recalling that Washington's interventions in the area have been costly and useless. The government of Venezuela remains commitment to the Venezuelan people to guarantee the safe and dignified return of migrants kidnapped by the United States through the plan for their return to their homeland. Let's see data about the development of the Back to the Homeland plan.